Hello and welcome to another episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews. I'm Dave G.
And I'm Lee G.
And today we're taking a look at the latest Steven Spielberg movie. Now, normally when we say Steven Spielberg, we think of a genre flick, but this time Spielberg has actually made a movie that is very, very personal to him. He's always wanted to make an adaptation of the theatre show West Side Story, and he has finally done it now in 2022. Now, for those that have never seen the musical or never seen the original film of West Side Story, basically it tells the story of a young girl, Maria, played here by Rachel Zegler, who is growing up in the 1950s in New York, where there's a lot of division. There are a lot of Americans who believe that people like her shouldn't be in the country because she comes from South America. Now, she is looked after by her brother Bernardo, played by David Alvarez, and he basically puts a rule on her when she starts dating that if he ever sees her with a gringo, which is their word for white person, he will kill him. Now, that all kind of goes over Maria's head because she's never been interested in guys until one night she goes to a dance held by the local police department and she meets Tony, played by Ansel Elgort, and falls in love with him straight away. Now, what ends up happening after that is a turf war that Tony doesn't really want to be a part of at all, but his best friends, including Riff, played by Mike Faust, does want a turf war, and despite what the police warn them about, a vicious turf war breaks out with Maria in the middle of it. So I guess to start off, what were your thoughts on West Side Story? Did Spielberg pull off his dream?
I think he did really well. Now, this movie is definitely for musical lovers.
Yeah.
It is based on, obviously, a musical, and it brings theatre to the movies. So one thing about this that I love is the theatre is so expensive to go to now, and I understand the costs and why it is expensive. That's not a judgment on why it costs so much to go to the theatre, but this just brings an ability or an opportunity for those of us that don't have a lot of money to see a beautiful theatre production in the cinemas. And it did come across like that. You did feel like you were at the theatre. Well, that's how I felt. I don't know about how others feel. There was great choreography in the film. There were some beautiful dances, and the costumes were really good too, in terms of the beautiful dresses that the females wear when dancing. And of course the guys wearing, I guess they're just everyday gang type costumes. Yeah, all of that was put together really well. It is a really long movie if you're not used to sitting through musicals. It's 2 hours and I think 36 minutes. Plus you get ads, of course, at the theatre before the movie starts. So you need to be prepared for about a 3-hour session. But the time does go quite quickly too. I felt that it's quite a sad film. It's not a film where you feel like you're kind of elated at the end of the film, and you are inspired by the film in different ways, but you're also quite sad because it really brings across well the division, the hatred, the racism, discrimination. There's grief and violence in the story, crime. There's beautiful moments though as well about celebrating love. Yeah, there's just many different, I guess, morals and values within this film. And I felt like peer pressure was one of the saddest things to see, in that, you've got characters that want to start a new life or not have hatred towards others, and to change their life. and the peer pressure was quite strong, and it came through really well in this story. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought this was a very brave move by Spielberg. Of course, we know Spielberg for his amazing movies that he's made over the years, E.T., Jaws. For me, he's one of the big four when it comes to genre filmmaking, along the likes of Lucas and Cameron. But also why I thought this was a brave move was the movie that was made in, I think it was 61, of this has always been labelled a classic. And it was only through when I first started to read about this version of the film being made that I found out that the people responsible for the original musical actually didn't like the film that came out in the 60s, and that's why Spielberg wanted to make this film. I still think it's a very, very brave move for him to move away from the films that we've known him to make in the past and to tackle a musical, because you have to be a very special kind of director to be able to capture a musical and to develop a musical in a way that it works on a cinema screen. And I think he does that really well, because you're kind of faced with different options that you can do. Do you lean more towards the cinema side of things and take out dancing and that where a character wouldn't dance, or do you embrace that and incorporate it into the film? And I think that's what he does here. Like there's a fight scene very early on in this film between the Latinos and the Americans, and he choreographs, or his choreographer catches it in such a way that it almost looks like they're dancing, like they're half fighting and half dancing. And I think, yeah, Spielberg is a very visual director. He always has been. Even when he tackles serious things like in Schindler's List, he made the choice in that movie to make everything black and white except for the one little girl who's in the red dress that you see in that film. He's creative and he's visual, so he was actually the perfect director to do a musical, and I thought the way he's actually done this is very, very well done. What did you think about that element of bringing theatre to a cinema screen and embracing both kind of fields to make it work?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think it really did work, and you did feel like you were in the theatre, and the dance scenes are amazing, and that makes you feel like you're in a theatre, of course. But then, of course, there's the more dramatic scenes that where you don't have the music, and you feel a bit more like it's a movie. And so, but it actually blends really well, and it's not like you're chopping and changing and thinking, oh, it feels like a theatre, it feels like a movie, it feels like the theatre. It's not like that at all. It blends perfectly together. But again, I do think you need to be a musical lover to watch it.
Some people just can't handle people singing lines and stuff like that. So
just suddenly, going into song in everyday life, it's not how we usually communicate. Or some of us love music, and of course we sing along to music, but we don't really just start singing to each other in everyday life. So I understand why that can be annoying or frustrating to some people because they don't see it as real. But I think if you love musicals and you understand that it's a way of communicating how a character feels and what they're thinking, then you will love it. Through the movie also they use both English and Spanish, and so there are a few times when they're speaking Spanish, and obviously I don't understand Spanish, and so you're reliant on the visuals and body language to pick up on what's going on. But you pick it up, and it's the same, I suppose, if you speak Spanish and English isn't your first language. There'll be times when you might struggle with the English component, but I think they did really well with it. I think that the body language and emotion really comes through regardless.
Yeah, and I think Spielberg embraces that one advantage that a film director has over a theatre director, and that is he plays around with showing close-ups of other characters' reactions. So I remember in one scene here, Bernardo is having a fight with his sister Maria, telling her why she can't date a gringo, and Bernardo's partner, Anita, is watching and she rolls her eyes, and Spielberg focuses on her rolling her eyes to show that she is sympathetic to Maria, even though she's standing by her man. And a theatre director doesn't have that advantage. He doesn't have or she doesn't have the advantage of showing another character's opinion of something like that as well, because the audience is automatically looking at the people that are talking. And I think that Spielberg uses that really, really well in this film. And of course, that can work in the negative as well. I think one of the weaknesses of the Cats musical a couple of years ago being on film was that the audience was so close with the camera to the characters that it was easy to see that it was a person dressed as a cat. Whereas if you go to see Cats in the theatre, it looks like cats on the stage. So, yeah, I think Spielberg really embraces both. What did you think about the look that he gives the suburb as well? Because he's shooting this in an area that's supposed to be 1950s New York. I thought that looked absolutely amazing as well, considering that he didn't use a sound studio for most of it. He used actual streets and things like that. They actually filmed this a block away from where they were filming in the Heights at the same time. And there's a couple of little funny stories where the two casts could see each other down alleyways performing just a block away. So, but what did you think of that look that Spielberg gave the 1950s New York?
Yeah, definitely it came through as that time period. I think he captured that well. And a lot of the film is on the streets and in massive kind of sheds and things like that. And so it's a very dark look, but he's got the lighting well enough to be able to see and not be confused about what's going on, but still giving that, it's almost a depressive look, I guess, because of the time and what was happening, and having the gangs in that area. But yeah, I love the alleyway type scenes. And I think what mixed it up, which made it brighter at times, is when they had the indoor dance scene, the bright colours come out, and while there's still, you can see the division between different cultures, there's still a beauty within it, and some really happy moments there. And I think that's really important for such a dark film, or a gang type film, that it brings out some beauty through it as well, so it's not dark the whole time.
I thought that was actually would have been the hardest part for Spielberg to do, actually, when at the end of the day, this is a gang film, like you just said. It's a film about two gangs going to war, but it's almost not in that same style as William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. This is a lot rougher, and you almost think back to like films like The Warriors and stuff like that, and you think, hang on a minute, Spielberg's got to direct dance sequences, and in the next moment he's got to do, and even early on in this film, so it's not a spoiler, someone gets their ear cut off with a pocket knife, and it's like, how do you direct that in such a way that it doesn't gross out people that are there for the theatre element or the musical side of the film? It's actually quite interesting because, of course, with a movie like The Warriors, that was a genre film about gangs, so the director could be really violent with his fight sequences. Here, Spielberg's got to try and find that way where it's believable that this is a gang fighting, but it's not going to turn off the what I call the theatre set that's gone along to see this film. So yeah, I thought he did that really, really well. What did you think of the performances of the actors, especially the leads? Because there was a fair bit of criticism when Rachel Zegler and Ansel Elgort were first named as the cast members.
I think they made a great choice with these actors. I really enjoyed the story of Tony, which Ansel plays, and I think he delivered it really well. You could see confusion at times, or see that he was not wanting the gang life anymore, and you could see how involved he was in it, prior, even though we didn't see all those scenes, because his story starts with a release from prison, but you can see he doesn't really want to go back to that life, but he has a loyalty, really strong loyalty to his gang family. I guess that's what you would call them. They are his family, and so, but he was torn between wanting to move forward in life. You could see, like, the acting was brilliant in that, he'd fallen in love with Maria, and he's mixed up in this world of pulling and throwing, like toing and throwing, wanting to get out but being pulled back in and that kind of stuff. So I thought he played that really well. And then his singing scenes as well. So Tony and Maria have the beautiful scene on the back alley stairway case.
And he did them live like a theatre actor. He refused to go and record them later. And
that's a standout moment in the film. And you see the previews, and there's bits of that in there, because that will draw audiences in to see the film. I think those moments, those beautiful moments, and he sung really well. Maria's the same. I think she did so well in her role, and her beautiful voice as well came through in her singing moments, in her singing scenes, and then she played beautifully as well, being in the middle of family and loyalty to her family, and going through grief and loss, and but also loving someone she wasn't supposed to love. And I think, a character needs to really show their emotions, and she did it really well. And I thought Tony and Maria together worked well together, and they see it, it came across as real, that they really were in love. I did like the character of Bernardo, although during the film there's times where you can't understand the hatred within him at the extent it gets to, but that's the great thing. An actor, if they're pulling emotions out of you and you're going from I like him to I'm really angry that he's doing that, they're doing their job well, because you're on the journey of the character, and they're actually making you feel different things. I really liked, the lieutenant and the officer as well. So we had Corey Stoll and Brian Darcy in those roles, and they really came off as a 1957 character, or characters. They did, I really liked the role that they had within the movie.
I thought, also going on that, about ones that really matched like the 1950s look, I thought Mike Faust as Riff
was my other favourite.
The kind of rough, street, tough kid that you could imagine working at the docks or something like that. And I thought, and his accent, he nailed it, because that was one of the things I thought might have been a challenge for Ansel Elgort, is that people from New York, especially in the 1950s, had a very distinctive accent. It's very different to what you would get in LA as an accent, and I thought they all nailed that accent pretty well.
They did. Yeah, I agree. That Riff was also one of those characters where you really felt for him in his situation, but you also wanted him to be able to move forward and change, and he was kind of stuck there.
Yeah. I also really like the relationship or the friendship that happens between Tony and Valentina. Valentina, of course, is played by Rita Moreno, who Spielberg tried desperately to get into this film because I think, and I might be wrong, I think she was the original Broadway Maria, but she has a long history with West Side Story in the musicals. I know she's certainly played Maria a number of times in the musicals, and Spielberg really wanted her in there somewhere, and she made a comment saying that she's pretty much played nearly every female role now in West Side Story. I really love the casting, and I admire Spielberg for sticking up for himself. So the studio, and this is not a secret, so I'm not naming anything I shouldn't name, the studio really wanted Jennifer Lawrence or Emma Stone to play Maria, and Spielberg put his foot down and said no. A, she had to be Latina, and two, he wanted somebody with theatre training. But he really had to fight for Rachel Zegler because this is her first film performance. She's done Broadway and stuff like that before. But I really, really admire Spielberg for taking that stand and saying to the studio, no, you can throw me Oscar-winning actresses, but I'm not interested in them because they're not Latino. I want a Latino to play a Latino. And I really, really admire him for that, for sticking to his guns. And I think Rachel Zegler shows that she's not only perfect for the role, because it's a role she's played a number of times, but she has got what it takes to be a movie star as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So I guess to wrap up now, what are you going to give this one out of 5?
I'm going to give it 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm giving it 4 out of 5 as well. I love the look. I love the darkness, but the light that Spielberg brings to it. So 4 out of 5 for me. And that's it for this episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews, where we looked at West Side Story. We both gave it 4 stars. Go and check it out. I know a lot of the cinema, it's been out for a little while now, but a lot of the cinemas are still screening it, and there's some special screening events coming up around Valentine's Day for it as well. So go and check out West Side Story, where you should see it on the big screen. But for now, I've been Dave G.
And I'm Lee G.
And we'll be back soon with another episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews.